Okay, item 16, amendment to the lease agreement between 39 Beech Street LLC and the City of Manchester for use of the building located at 39 Beech Street until August 31st, 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, what is your pleasure? Alderman Barry, second by Alderman Burkish. Discussion? Alderman Vincent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to approve this measure because I get where we're getting the money. I just want it to be known. I've said this many times before. 39 Beech is a crutch that we continue to lay on, and I just feel that there's got to be a time where we've got to figure this out, because we're going to be talking about this. We're not going to talk about it in July. We're going to talk about it in August, and it's going to put us on the spot to make a decision, and that's not fair to the taxpayers. It's not fair to us as aldermen. So I do ask that the mayor tries to work this into discussion long before we have to make a last-minute decision.
Yeah.
That's
so
what
I fully appreciate
where
you're coming from, and I know we've had conversations about this offline. What I tried to talk about in my budget address was that I think we've taken a number of really important steps, both on the law enforcement side, both on addressing the underlying drivers, and then on the transitional housing and the housing side. And what I said in there, I mean, I chose those words carefully about over the next 12 months, the 9 months, 12 months, that I believe we see an end to this need for emergency sheltering. And I just said, I don't think we're there yet, but I do see an end to it, as Chief Cashin has talked about as well when we had our non-public meeting. But I hear your frustration. I mean, I think I may have said it to you earlier today, but if I can do one thing as mayor, it would be when I turn this office over to whomever comes after me, if 80% of their day is not consumed by homelessness, that to me would be a massive win. So I feel your frustration, I live with it, and I appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Any additional discussion? Yes, Alderman Cantor.
Is this going to be a low barrier or a high barrier shelter?
So as I mentioned in one of the previous meetings, so because the dollars are coming from the state, which are coming from the feds, I don't have any control over the barrier. Now, what I did have control over, like with the $250,000 that we put towards through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to the 231 Merrimack Street, that transitional housing, we do have control over that. That's high barrier. I agree. I want a higher barrier. I, as mayor, do not have control over federal funding for the shelter because it is federal dollars. I can't change that law or rule as mayor.
All right, well, I have a few things I have to say about that. The low barrier shelters do not help our community. It was created under Mayor Craig, and Mayor Rue, you have continued this when you promised that you would make it a high barrier, and that didn't happen. And then later on, you said we were gonna get out of the shelter business, and that didn't happen either. So I'm furious because at the beginning of this, when we talked about it, we said, build it and they will come. So guess what? They've come. People from out of state, out of different cities, and they come onto Manchester, and it's a burden on us taxpayers, and that is not okay. So I am not for a low barrier shelter at all. Never mind, it puts people in harm's way. The sex offenders that are allowed to stay there, people using drugs, they're allowed to stay there. We all know that this is a problem. Never mind the first responders and how they feel. They're tired of it. They're tired of it. So I am not for this at all. It has not helped anyone in our community at all, because they really should have better options, and we need to hold people accountable. So I am a big no.
Yeah, so a number of things on that. I don't recall saying that I was going to raise the barrier because I don't have the authority to do it. So I wouldn't have promised I was going to raise or do something that I don't have the authority to do. The challenge that I think I've talked about with respect to the shelter right now is that there are individuals in there that are on 24/7 oxygen, that have severe physical limitations and disabilities, that are over the age of 65. And what I said in my budget address was there are those that are homeless that have no interest in not being homeless. There are those that are breaking the law, which is why we transferred $500,000 to the police department for hotspot patrols, why this board really advocated on behalf of bail reform. It's why we were the first city in the United States to ban camping. So I agree that we can't have any tolerance or any perception that we would allow for somebody to break the law. There are people that need help. And I think that having that shelter in place for the time being, like I just said, that there is an end to this. But as of right now, if that were to shut down, we'd have 20 or 30 individuals that have significant physical limitations, that are on, or in wheelchairs, that are on oxygen, that I don't want to just put out onto the street. So I agree with you, I don't want this
understand
as a
that,
long-term
but
thing.
it should be a high barrier shelter, period.
And if I could change that, I would,
Well-
and I can't. Alderman Long.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I've served under 4 mayors, and there's always been a low barrier. It wasn't former Mayor Craig that started that. Again, she was tied, as the mayor indicated, that the money that comes to help that, so that it's not coming from our general fund, is a low barrier. So you have no choice but to use your general fund to fund it. And as far as it's never helped anybody in our community, totally not in agreement to that. There are tons of people that it has helped. First of all, the people that the mayor just mentioned, it's helping them. And I know people that have been in there and that have gotten out and been on their own. I know people that have used substances that have stopped and got out on their own. So there have been people in our community that it has helped.
No, I know what you're talking about, but the thing is, they also didn't, they didn't feel safe. A lot of people didn't feel safe, and that is the problem as well. So we're just allowing it, and it's back on the taxpayer with the DPW and how much they had to pick up for rubbish and everything. So,
Okay, so we have Alderman Barry.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just to speak what Alderman Long spoke about, he's right. It wasn't Mayor Craig, wasn't Mayor Gatsas, wasn't Mayor Ginter, wasn't anyone that has to do with our homeless situation. It's federal funding. When we have federal funding, our hands are tied, no matter who's mayor. That's the way it goes. And if you don't want federal funding, then we can't help these people.
well,
right?
it could have
No,
gone
no,
to
no, I'm not-
1269.
Okay. But we're on the right track. I mean, we've talked about this before, about Hope for New Hampshire taking over and dealing with this, so I think we're in good hands. Thank you.
So we have Chairman Lavasser.
Only thing I'm concerned about is we're going back now, the last time I think it ended in November, and no one wanted to close it because of the winter coming, and it was a wise decision on this board's part because we had a very rough winter. But now we're coming to September, and we're going to shut it down in September, and the cold weather starts pretty quick in October. I just think that we're chasing our own tail on this. I mean, what really appalls me in this is the amount of rent that place is getting. I think they've increased it to $30,000 a month, and for 40 people. I just don't understand if we could spend that $30,000 a month on some of the projects that you've already put in place now that are currently getting built or redone, whereas we're just blowing this $150,000 on rent for the next 5 months. How could we not put that to a better use to
Yeah.
get them, the ones on oxygen especially, that we've talked about for a couple of years, into some sort of more stable housing?
Yeah, so this is a constant frustration, and we've had this conversation of mine as well. And Chief Cashin can speak to when the city was initially looking for a building to take over to do this kind of work. I don't want to put words in the chief's mouth, but he said something like they looked at 90 different buildings. And for a variety of reasons, it was near a school, it was in far too much in a residential area. There were a number of conditions and limitations that were on, and that this was the building that was chosen because it was the perfect mix of what we needed in that instance. So now, I mean, we're kind of, over a barrel when it comes to this spot, because they understand that this is the only real option that the city has. But I mean, I can assure you that, once a week, I talk to Chief Cashin and say, is there another opportunity? Is there another place that we can look at? How do we get out from under this rent? And the challenge is that anywhere, I've had this conversation with Alderman Burkish and Alderman Terrio, because it is on, the baseline of both your wards. Anywhere that something like this goes, you are going to have people that object to it, and rightfully so. And I totally appreciate that. But the challenge is, if we start trying to move it around, I just think we're going to wind up with the same kind of problems that we have. But I agree with you. Would I love not to spend $30 a month in rent? Believe me.
Mayor, when does this take us to? August?
The end of August.
End of August.
Yeah. And so to Alderman Barry's point, the comment that I made on Thursday night during my budget address was what we've not had before is case managers. What we've not had is those individuals who can go in there and say, okay, you are John Smith. All right, let's get you hooked up to this, this, and this. Let's get you into housing. Let's get you into treatment. Let's get you out of this position. So there are people in there, Jake's team with ECEL, I think they do really phenomenal work. There's only 3 of them that are in there at any given time. And because they are looking over, anywhere between 40 and 60 individuals, they don't always have the time to help shepherd that person through the process and get them out of there. But, and thank you, Alderman Thomas, and thank you, Alderman Barry, and thank you for everybody that worked on the Hope for New Hampshire Recovery project. Now we have that case manager in place. So the idea is that we can connect those people to services, long-term help, get them out of there. If you remember at the end of last year when we were talking about the shelter, we had looked at the results, the information that was coming out of Beech Street. Over 35 people had gotten into housing, or I think 12 people had gotten employed. I think 7 people had gotten into detox and recovery services. So even prior to a case manager being on there, there were some successes that were coming out of it. Now, hopefully, with the addition of the case manager from Hope and that mobile crisis unit, we can do even more, much more quickly.
Question, Mayor? So what do we have a plan in place for September 1st?
Yeah, so the conversation that I had in my budget address last year was that I wanted to work to find someone to take that over. And those conversations are still happening. I'm still trying to work on that. It's difficult because there's not a lot of funding that comes in for kind of like sheltering. So what I'm saying with the case manager is that if we can use that case manager and we can double down to try and get the individuals out of there, make it smaller, then perhaps we could look at somewhere else to go, which the overhead would be much less.
All right, thank you.
One more thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to say no to federal funds because it cripples our community. And that's what it's been doing. And there are plenty of churches and other people that can help out. And that if we come together as a community, we don't have to accept this. So that's where I stand, period.
All right, so we have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Please record the opposition. So item 17 is the same. It's for the professional services agreement. The prior one was for the rent, so this is the professional services agreement. Motion to approve.
So
Alderman
moved.
Burkish, second by Alderman Long. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, reports.